Hey guys, it's Kay here. This is Lost Between Analog and Digital, an unscripted, angsty millennial podcast about growing up in the 90s and early 2000s in a small town. Thanks for joining me today. So, growing up, was anyone else really obsessed with professional wrestling? Like growing up in the early 90s during the pro wrestling attitude era, and was before the new generation, where guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and everything kind of rose to prominence. I remember after probably about 96, 97, like everybody was absolutely obsessed with pro wrestling. You had guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock breaking out. In school, everybody was just utterly obsessed with it. Like every kid had a pro wrestling t-shirt or a action figure, book bag, something. And me and my friends, we loved to like go backyard wrestling. This went back to even like kind of before it got popular. I can remember being like, 6, 7 and, practicing like suplexing your friends or DDTing them or whatever. But the thing I always found weird or kind of odd was just before wrestling got like really popular, the was when the Power Rangers kicked off in about like 95. I remember being in school 94 or 95, 96 would have been like my first year or so, and the absolute hysteria around Power Rangers. But we were allowed to practice pro wrestling and everything, like DDTing your friend in the gravel on the playground or jumping off the monkey bars with a flying elbow. That was all fun or fine, fun and games, whatever. But if you try to do a cartwheel and a haphazard Power Ranger kick, the playground monitors would be like screaming their lungs out at you, and you'd get lectured about how you're gonna kill your friends. Not breaking someone's neck with a haphazard German suplex, but that you have some martial or fake martial arts that you're trying out. But I think that kind of came down to like the tail end of the Satanic Panic, where like Asian martial arts were evil and satanic and dangerous, and wrestling was, fake. But good luck telling anybody who was a fan of wrestling in the 90s that it was fake, especially when you were a kid. But like, I mean, some of my earliest memories were watching pro wrestling. Like I can remember being probably about 2, maybe 3, sitting in front of the TV. It had a dial on it, so it only had like a dozen channels at the most. Watching Saturday morning wrestling, playing with my Batmobile and like chewing on Batman's head. Like I was that young. But yeah, like probably around grade grade 3 or so, like me and all my friends got really hardcore into like backyard wrestling and everything. So like I had a couple different friend groups growing up, and there was like my childhood best friend Ian and Jamie and David and that, and they would have been like about maybe 2 years older than me. I had my friend group from school, and then there were other people from my school friend group that kind of lived in the same area as me. And like every group was, really hardcore into wrestling, and we would all kind of act it out. Like I can remember Jamie had a VHS tape about, how to learn how to wrestle or whatever. So I can remember being over the park across the street from like my grandmother's, and we were like practicing back bumps and how to fall and like to tuck your chin in so you're not hitting your head, and to not land on your elbows. And like we knew wrestling was like scripted. So like we would plan out our matches, and like, you'd go to this spot, we go to this spot, this is the finish kind of thing. Yeah, like we were really hardcore into it. Like we'd, do it, put on a show for our friends or whatever. I remember doing a lot of like backyard wrestling in Ian's grandmother's backyard, because you couldn't see us from the street. Ian's father's a lobster fisherman, and he would store lobster traps kind of there. So we kind of had this like fenced in backyard that it was like thick, so nobody could really see us. So when she would leave, kind of go to town to do errands for the day or whatever, we would go and like wrestle in her backyard until basically somebody ended up getting hurt, and we called it quits for the day. We'd be like jumping off the picnic table with flying elbows, or for the really risky moves off the back step, which was probably like 2.5 meters off the ground. The other thing about our backyard was there was a clothesline from the back step. So on a couple occasions we had like a ladder match when we were like 7 or 8. Like and we're so unsupervised. Like I can remember going with Jamie to get the ladder out of his garage and walking like the 6 or 7 houses with me, Jamie, and Ian carrying a ladder and a fake championship belt to go have our ladder match. And like nobody stopping us, nobody questioning what we're doing, whatever. Why a bunch of 10-year-olds are crossing the street with a 12-foot ladder or whatever. And like somehow nobody ever got seriously hurt. Although there was one time, I think it was one of the times we had a ladder match. If I'm remembering correctly, I think it was like 2-on-2, and Jamie was on the ladder. I don't know if he was going for the belt or climbing up, but then one of us went to go and like tip the ladder, and he jumped off, and I think he kicked David in the face. And somehow David doesn't get hurt, but the ladder falls into Ian, and Ian ends up breaking his wrist, either knocks him over and he lands on his wrist, or when he put his hand up or whatever. Pretty sure, like I'm 99% sure that's the time Ian broke his wrist. Maybe he only ended up spraining it or whatever, but I know he ended up having a broken arm around that time. 99% sure it was from a backyard ladder match. The other reason too, we used Ian's grandmother's backyard was where it was hidden and everything. My little brother was really into wrestling, but he was like 3 years younger than me, so that never really kind of worked out. That, and he was like a real dirty fighter. Like you couldn't convince him it was it was fake, it was staged. He wouldn't pull his punches and all this like nonsense. Like, but then his excuse was, "Oh, well, I'm little," or he gets hurt, and then I get screamed at by my grandmother or mother or whoever he goes and cries and complains to. Yeah, so wrestling with like Ian and Jamie and them, like Jamie was always kind of the safe one that I makes it sound like we're way more professional or whatever, knowing the lingo, but like Jamie was always safe. I could take bigger risks with Jamie. Like I know I've moonsaulted off a back step to or to him standing and like got caught, and that would have been like the finish of something. I've jumped off and frog splashed and crossbody blocked. And with Jamie, I felt comfortable doing that stuff because I knew he would be in the right spot. That me and him were similar size, despite the fact that I was a couple of years younger. I knew he wasn't going to dive out of the way or whatever. Ian was always would want to do stuff, but would get hurt in the process. So like me and Jamie, if one of us is getting hurt, we're both getting hurt. But it was reasonably safe considering how stupid the risks are we took. Ian was fine, but chances are somebody would get hurt at some point. Something would get botched or whatever. Ian was a little bit smaller than me or Jamie. But then David would be like, yeah, you go do this high spot, or go do like this or whatever. And then would immediately chicken out. Like he would jump out of the way, or he wouldn't be there, or there's no way in hell I could moonsault off a back step and expect David to catch me. Like this was a guy that we made fun of him for the longest time, that apparently he got whiplash on a merry-go-round. It stopped abruptly or something, and he complained about his neck for like 2 weeks in junior high. But yeah, like I remember how just kind of crazy everybody at school was over wrestling. Like the school was so over the top with like the anti-Power Rangers, like, oh, this martial arts stuff is going to get someone hurt. But like we were jumping off the monkey bars with like flying elbows, or drop kicking someone, or suplexing your friend, like off the jungle gym equipment, or there's always something we were acting out or whatever that chances are was in a pit of pea gravel that just makes it worse. And that was always fine. Like the kids in the DX t-shirts, like the Suck It, or the Rock merchandise talking about Poontang Pie or whatever. Like stuff was wildly inappropriate. But yeah, no, Power Rangers was dangerous, but sexual innuendo and possibly crippling your friend with haphazard suplex, that was fine, because wrestling's fake. So, but like I can remember, like we knew what all that stuff meant. One of your friends would be like, I got 2 words for you, suck it, and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna whoop your candy ass and then go eat your mom's poontang pie. It's like, yeah, like try that nowadays. Like go up to a stranger or whatever when you have an altercation and threaten to kick his ass, and then go have sweet cunnilingus with his mother. try it with your boss next time he gives you shit. Like, see where that's gonna go. But yeah, like no, that was perfectly acceptable. And like I know kids had like, the rock merchandise talking about the eating pie or whatever, and Stone Cold Steve Austin says hell yeah. Was it Austin 316 just kicked your ass or whatever? I think one of the reasons why, at least at my school, why pro wrestling wasn't banned or anything was we had a kid in the learning center, Brandon. Everybody called him B. I'm not making fun of the guy or anything. We all thought really highly of him and everything. But he had Down syndrome and a very heavy speech impediment and probably autism. And he was absolutely obsessed with pro wrestling. Like Austin 316 shirt, book bag, would show up with his pro wrestlers and everything. And like, honestly, he was like the coolest kid. And our school had some of the special needs kids put in a regular class with a support teacher. So they had, would have some degree of peer development and everything. But, I think it's a great idea. Except like he was never really allowed to kind of like play or really interact with us because his like support teacher just I don't know, she was just unpleasant. I don't know if she thought like we were making fun of him or getting him wound up or something, but like any time we would like try to talk with B, we'd just kind of get shut down or whatever. She was kind of like assigned to them like 24/7, so like she would be their recess minder and like they would eat lunch with her and everything. So like I get it. It's kind of a heavy ordeal or whatever. But like we weren't allowed to play at recess with them or whatever. They would just walk around the walking track around like the soccer field where everybody would be like out practicing wrestling moves and everything. So like, Brandon would or B would just watch us from a distance and everybody's out pro wrestling. And even if we weren't wrestling, like we'd be playing like some kind of like murder ball where it was like rugby mixed with pro wrestling. So, maybe you're tackling your friends or German suplexing someone. But every now and then, Brandon would like get away from his minder and just go on a tear. Like out of nowhere, you'd turn around and take a stone cold stunner from him. And if he was feeling particularly spicy, he would drop down and like Stone Cold Steve Austin and get in your face and start trash talking you. And he might just be like, "Give me a hell yeah," or Austin 316 or something, or you just might start cursing a strip off. And like we all thought the world of him, so we try to sell for him and everything, but the very heavy speech impediment, and he's like right in your face, and he's like spitting all over you, and you're trying not to crack up, and you're trying to sell that you just took, a devastating stone cold stunner. And I mean, he didn't hold back. You took a full on gut kick. But yeah, like if you're one of the ones that would sell for him, he would seek you out the next time that he got free. And like he did this with the gusto of a dog that gets off his leash and has so much to do in so little time. And like I'm not taking a shot at him or making fun of him. Like this guy had like pent up energy and like spent like the last like 2 weeks watching everybody wrestle and not get to be a part of it. So when he saw his moment to get away, he went full tilt. And I know like sometimes it'd be like 6 or 7 of us he would get in like, the 5 minutes that he would get free. Honestly, though, it was like some of the best experiences or best memories I had as a kid is, seeing how happy that made him was when he, would take the boot to the gut and then the flipping you off right before you take that stunner. Like he was giving it hell. Like he knew he was getting in trouble for running off. So he was getting every second worth of that. But yeah, like we were into pro wrestling like well into the end of junior high. Even I don't know, probably grade 10 or so. Like we were still not so much doing it definitely not doing it at school and junior high and high school, but like on the weekend or after school on a nice day, we're still out there doing stupid shit. So like around the time I was in grade 6, maybe going into junior high, there was 2 younger kids in the neighborhood that their grandparents were in the neighborhood and they kind of lived like on the other side of town and would just be there on the weekends. And the grandparents ended up getting them a trampoline, and like their yard was kind of a hangout spot for like all the kids in the neighborhood and everything. after a couple months or whatever, it was just we would go and we would wrestle on the trampoline all the time, and like so there's a picnic table to climb up onto the trampoline and that, and so it was like me, Ian, and Jamie and them, and then like my little brother was a bit older at this time, so he was trying to wrestle with us a lot more and everything, and he had this really fun special move where he would like jump on you or jump as high as he could, and then drive his knees into whatever piece of flesh he could. Like if you're on your back, he would like try to drive them into the small of your back or your face or your gut or whatever. Bad enough, like he was always trying to actually throw a real punch or a kick or something while we're all trying to do our best mock punches so nobody's actually getting hurt, because when we did the crazy shit, that's what hurt. Or like you would something would get botched or whatever. Like if I try to suplex Jamie and like I hit wrong or whatever, and like we're both winded, my little brother would jump in and try to get some shit in while he had a chance. But then was always like, as soon as he gets hurt or whatever, it's not fair because he's small and he's younger than everybody. It was like, bitch, like you just leaped off a picnic table and drove your knees into my spine when you're not even part of this match. Like, and then crazy thing about a trampoline is you get so used to being able to jump high and like, get distance and get height and everything. So then when you try to jump off something that's not a trampoline, you like feel like you fall 10 feet short of where you're expecting to land. I wasn't really anyone that was gun shy. Like I said, I was doing moonsaults at like 10 off a back step onto like Jamie. But yeah, well, after almost botching a moonsault on a trampoline and almost landing on my neck, that I think that was another part of it. But not being able to judge where I would land when I jumped, that just like it kind of like scared the shit out of me the first time I jumped off something high and was like, oh, I am not going nearly as far as I thought I would. Like, so I had to change up a little bit. Like, I start doing a lot more like crossbody splashes or like a frog splash or something. There's no way in hell I was brave enough to do a moonsault if I couldn't tell where I was going to land anymore. Like, I'm so banged up from all this stupid backyard wrestling. Like, I have a separated sternum from I don't know what. I'm like 70% sure it's from botching something. It's either that or around the same time playing Spotlight with another group of friends. I tripped over Anthony, who was crawling along the ground, and he thought I was Albert. So he reared up and threw me to the ground and jumped on me. And Anthony would have been like probably about maybe 6'2", 6'4" at the time, and probably like, 220, 240, and just like absolutely curb stomped me. Well, at least he claims that he thought I was Albert. But the story's changed a few times over the years, and he might have known it was me, and it might have been payback for hitting on his sister. So yeah, might be that. But yeah, it's either between botching some splash at some point or getting curb stopped into the ground. I separated my sternum, so that clicks all the time, and it's like getting punched or stabbed in the chest every time that happens. Especially if I'm like doing or if I'm active or speaking or whatever, and it's just like all of a sudden just like oh. But like we're lucky we nobody got seriously hurt. And there's the expression about like wrestlers and everything about living a charmed life, and seeing like the pro wrestlers that were actually trained and had proper equipment and doing it and everything, and realizing how many people risk their lives or are permanently disabled or just beat to hell with this stuff. Like we were so lucky because we were, despite the fact that at least with some of my friends, we learned to or try to learn to do it right and to do it safe, that other friends and that it was just like, yeah, no, I know how to do a German suplex, or I know how to do that. Like I've seen it 50 times on SmackDown. Come here, let me try something. In junior high too, like we had these like variety show things that we would do kind of like the day before Halloween, or it might have been on Halloween. And like one of the last days before Christmas, it would be like kind of a talent show. And then we would do like there would be like games like tug of war and some different stuff like that. It was just kind of a filler day. and you just get a teacher to sign off on whatever. So one of our teachers was like a big wrestling fan too, and he would sign off on us doing these big like scripted wrestling matches, and like we had to script them out to get approved. But it'd be like a 6-on-6 elimination tag or 6-on-6 like elimination match. Like yeah, there was at least 2 times when I was in grade 7 we got to do a full blown wrestling match in front of like the entire school. No gym padding, no nothing, just like a boom box, and we'd go and plan the whole thing up the park because they had a stage that was about the same size as the gym, like the stage in the gym. And so like all the school would be on the bleachers, and you'd have like the whole gym floor, and we'd have like the like usually the bigger guys that there's no way I wanted like a guy like George jumping off anything onto me, or and there's no way in hell that I was picking up that a guy of his size to like suplex him or anything. So they would be the referees, and then we'd plan out the whole thing, and then it was like team match. So you kind of eliminate elimination team match or whatever. So I think it was. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling. I think it was the last one we did. We went to Mr. Ellsworth to get approval for it. He was like, "Do you guys want to do a table match?" He's like, we got an old busted table in the cafeteria. He's like, I bet I can get permission for you to use that. Do you? And I think you guys could do a table match. And I was like, hell yeah. Like, we can do a table match. So we script the whole thing out and everything. And big 6-on-6 tag. We have the table kind of hidden off to the side. So we're going through the whole thing. Like, I think it was that match or another match. I can remember doing a crossbody off the stage, and whoever was supposed to catch me didn't catch me right, and just like to break my fall and just hitting the floor and like being down for probably way too long, and then trying to get to your feet to get to the next spot, but like no padding or anything, so you're like just hitting the hard floor. The match ends where it gets down to it was me and Albert, and I'm pretty sure it was Steven, the last 3. So it's me and Albert on one team, and Steven's the last one. So we're like, how are we going to get this table in? Because it has to be it has to be the finale. Like it has to be the finish. And so we thought of all these different things, and we're trying to think how to do it safe and how not like to kill anyone. So we're trying to figure out, and the reason it ended up being 2-on-1 is we're like, well, we'll do like a tag team like move, and then we decided on we were going to try to do a 3D, but then we're like, no, like Steven's not a big guy. Chances are he's not going to break the table. We had like just we're trying to figure out who was going to go through the table or whatnot, but I think some different people had been floated or whatever, but it ended up being it was me and Albert going to suplex Steven through the table. So we figured the 3 of us hitting the table at the same time, that should break it. It's not a gimmick table or anything. Like it's just an old table with a broken leg from the cafeteria. Never really even like thought to check it out or anything to figure out like how we're doing this. We're just like, yeah. No, if we can use the table, we'll use the table. If not, like, we'll still we'll go to a similar finish kind of thing. So we get this table set up for the suplex, get him in position, and you hoist him up, and you're holding him there for a second, and then me and Albert fall back with Steven and hit the table, and it's not one of those chipboard pressboard tables. It's an old table from like the 70s that is like made of actual plywood. The frame of it, like it had a metal edge around it, and then the supports underside were like steel. So we hit this table, and it's like hitting the floor, but you're like 3 feet off the ground. So our like backs are draped all over it. And it's like, it knocked the wind out of me. And like when you knock the wind out of yourself and you can't tell if like a 1/10 of a second has passed or like 10 minutes have passed, like when you're just anguishing there. And I just remember like feeling like we're hung in limbo, draped across this table. Like my spine is like killing me. Everything's just throbbing, and it didn't break. And then finally, after what felt like probably like, 5 minutes, but it was probably a 1/10 of a second, the broken leg gives out. So like it goes like boom to the ground. And now the table's on an angle. The funny thing about like being on an angle is, like gravity. So I'm on the highest part of the table. Albert's to my right, and Steven's draped across the table, head between our like shoulders, kind of. And the three of us slide down this table, and it like cuts into our backs and everything. And I just remember like laying there in a heap, and like nobody's like clapping or cheering that I can remember. It was just like they were like, "What the hell?" Because like 2/3 of the school probably doesn't really watch wrestling, and we're like, "Yeah, we're like thinking we're gonna be like the Dudley Boys," and then remember like the visceral, like having a big scrape or gouge down my back for weeks afterwards. Oh, like, but it was signed off on, like, and nobody kind of questioned it afterwards. Like, I don't think we're end up being allowed to do it the next year, but maybe it was that like we didn't have enough people, or there was like maybe some other change to it or whatever. But it was also, it would have been post September 11th too, so maybe they just kind of didn't care. It was a weird time that so much uncertainty and everything, kind of like right now, but yeah, like we were so into wrestling, it got to the point that we had a school sponsored table match. Like, glad that I had a supportive teacher about, pro wrestling and bodily harm. Not, never had a supportive teacher for anything else, like, growing up dyslexic and being in speech therapy on and off for a big part of elementary school. Like, not that it was anything particularly bad, but it was like, yeah, didn't have a supportive teacher for any of that stuff. But you want to suplex your friend into a table for my entertainment, sure, we'll sign off on that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this story of us being stupid assholes as kids and putting our bodies on the line for a plastic replica belt and neighborhood bragging rights or whatever the hell was at stake at the time. I'm sure I'm not alone in, doing stupid, reckless stuff with my friend or with your friends growing up. If you enjoyed this and you want to support the podcast, you can tell a friend. That's the best way to kind of help us get the word out right now. Leave a review. And, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.